What happened today, Sergio? What's going on?
Well, first of all, I really want to commend Harry for his interview. Before we get into the nitty gritty of this, um, he had an interview with David Risher that ran after my announcement. Megan, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
I had done a summary of what we knew. First of all, we knew this for about how long, Chris? 10 days, a week. Uh,
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like we always know these things ahead of time. We're under embargo. We can't talk about it. Although, to Lyft's credit or discredit, they had released this in the wild, and I was getting screenshots all over the place saying, "Sergio, what is this?" I'm like, I have no idea what that is. Fully well knowing I know what it was, but I can't talk about it, obviously. And they trust us that we keep the embargo, and we do. That's why we have this relationship with these companies. That's why we're kind of inside and knowing what's coming, what's going, recommendations to them. But anyway, please go watch Harry's interview with David Risher. Um, it is, I think, for me, it's probably Harry's best CEO interview over the last few
Mhm.
years that he's done so many. I give him a B plus, if not an A. He pushed a lot. Maybe the coaching we had at 9:30 at night the day before had something to do with it. I said, you can't let this guy go by, skating by like they always do. No more softball, Harry.
Yeah,
And
he
he really
he
did
he definitely
push.
pushed David a little bit.
He definitely pushed a lot. He had him admit that first time, Chris, that a CEO of a rideshare company admitted that the drivers also have costs. Just like they
Mhm.
have costs, we have costs. And our costs have escalated as much as theirs, probably more because we have more costs than they do running a vehicle. And he said that. And I wish, Dara, I know you guys are watching now. I wish you admitted the same thing, because that almost looked like, Lyft is treating drivers like humans, that we do understand where the drivers are coming from. So please go watch that. Congrats, Harry. If anybody gives Harry a bad time on that interview, you have to come talk to me. I think he did as well as he could. So with all that, Lyft.
I think beyond well, before that, I think also too, him coming back onto the channel, kind of a
Oh,
midpoint between because we had him on our show a few months ago at this 3 months ago, I believe, at this point, and he had basically 6 months to talk about what we've talked about on the show and try to make some changes because that's what they were saying. So this was a good midway point interview. We're going to get into the announcement in a little bit, but it was a good midway point. And then, some of the things that was said today will also be tracked and figured out because
yeah,
when he does come back onto the show in a couple more months, ETA probably March, April, just so you guys know, we're looking at that range.
yeah,
Yeah, we're going to be holding more accountability to it. So every time you
yeah,
make a claim, Uber, Lyft, we're definitely holding you to it.
yeah.
And, if it goes into the negative, we're gonna call you out. Don't you worry.
Yeah,
So,
and we're equal opportunity bashers.
yep.
But when we do bash, we bash with facts as opposed to just feelings. And I think it's this, maybe it's that. I heard this. We don't do that. We just kind of go, these are the facts. This is what it is. This is the numbers. This is the math, and we go at it. When it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. Um, the reason, by the way, they call this, Chris, the early 2024 driver announcement is because there's more to come, and we are working on a couple of really important things, and we can't say that obviously, but so here's the basic package. I mean, this was a full package. I'm not going to deny it. There were some really good things in here. Obviously, we're going to talk most of this time about this earnings guarantee or take rate guarantee. We're going to break it down for you guys, and I have my feelings about it. It's again on in my article in depth on the blog. Go sign up so you can read it. In case I missed something here. So, new driver benefits in early 2024 release. Early because there is more to come from Lyft. Earn 70% of rider fares after fees guaranteed. See where every dollar of riders' fares go. Earn more for waiting during scheduled rides. That's a positive. Find more ways to choose rides at the airport. That for me is a nothing burger. This is an important part. Most companies are trying to go EVs, obviously, by 2030, and Lyft was only in California, unlike Uber, which is nationwide with the EV credit, dollar EV credit. Now Lyft is coming in with about 5-6 states, and in fact, a couple of cities in Canada with a better actually EV credit than Uber's. 50 trips for $100. I think it's going to last about 5 months. It's a trial period probably. And something that's really we talked about on David's last interview with me on Show Me the Money Club Live was, what are we doing about these unjust deactivations and what's happening? So this is Lyft's response, and I think it's a good one. Just like Uber released theirs, a few months ago when I met all the executives, including Dara in Los Angeles. Look, both companies are listening; they're doing their best. However, to dissect this package, we need to go into what affects people's pockets. So Lyft came up with this. Now, I have absolutely made up my mind of what this is, and Chris has as well. And I think we're kind of lined up. Not kind of lined up. We're probably lined up. And at the end of this segment, I'm going to read a letter I received from Joe in Chicago. I think that sums up everything that I'm thinking about this subject. But here we go. So, according to Lyft, again, we had this for 10 days in our hands almost, and I had enough time to read this about 8 times over, maybe 80 times over, really trying to make sense of this. According to Lyft, 15% of all drivers after external expenses. Now, let's get into this external expense part because this is where the sticking point is with all this. Lyft says that if a passenger fare is $1, 24 cents out of that $1 goes into a bucket called external expenses. What is in this external expense? Okay, because you guys want to know. I got more emails about that today. What is that, Serge? I'm like, okay, we're going to explain it to you. According to Lyft, what's in that bucket of external expenses is majority of it is commercial insurance. Okay, that the TNCs under law must provide their drivers to drive on the platform, albeit with a $2,500 deductible, which is kind of really high, but it used to be $1,000. And what else is in there? Credit card processing fees, city taxes, state taxes that you're in California, Prop 22 benefits. Also, airport drop-offs if it applies to that trip. So all these are in a bucket. There is one other thing in there that's called platform hosting fee. I don't know. That may be that they're running their website smoothly, I guess. So that 24% or 24 cents out of that dollar fare automatically goes off the top. That goes away. So now we're left with 76 cents. Follow me up, people. Out of the 76 cents, the new Lyft deal is that no driver will earn less than 70% of that 76 cents. Okay? And the cut of that, the remaining 76 cents after Lyft's expenses, external expenses are deducted, the split on that one is going to be 70-30. If by any chance goes below 70, the driver will be made whole on the following Monday. Not following Monday, the day after the weekend. Sunday, Monday, you should be made whole. Now, this definitely, to me, Chris, is a right step in the right direction. It definitely puts out a lot more information of where every single dollar of the fare goes. Thank you, Greg. Every single penny of every dollar that the passenger puts out. And it is definitely more transparent than what Lyft had before, because before, when you got the PDF after 10 days or 9 days, you needed an accounting degree to figure it out. Now, if you do a single trip today, you can look at it and see all the breakdown. What the external expenses were, what your take rate was, what their take rate was. It's as clear as day, definitely more transparent. Now, also part of the reason that I understood from reading it a million times was this. Lyft is saying that, according to Lyft, again, this is not my words. This is in their blog. You guys can go read this, right? But it's in our blog as well. According to Lyft, after the external expenses, which average about 24, some weeks it may be higher external expenses to you because of the commercial rates in the country, what city you're in. Like in California, it's very high. According to Lyft, after external expenses, 88% of the remaining fare goes to the driver. This is their word. Okay. They have these numbers. I'm not going to doubt these numbers. However, again, according to Lyft, 15% of all drivers somehow, maybe it's their strategy, maybe it's the style of driving that they do, have always fallen below that 70-30 cut, that guarantee now that the Lyft is introducing. Well, that means 85% are above that 70-30 cut. Again, 70-30 is a floor, is a guarantee that your earnings split is never going to be less than 70% of the passenger fare after external expenses. I am not selling you this. All I'm saying is I'm just transferring information here, okay? My opinion is not that it's a good thing or a bad thing or an increase in earnings or whatever not. You guys will hear the opinion shortly. So 85% are doing above the 70%, 30% cut, 15 are below. Is this like a Robin Hood situation? You know, take it from the rich, give it to the poor kind of a thing? Because those 15% who have not figured out how to have their take rate be above 70% probably should not be on the platform. Is it taken from the rich, give it to the poor? It seems like it to me. Is it that 85% that is going to subsidize the bottom 15%? Seems like it to me. So without confusing with all these numbers, that's the message I'm relaying. It's not what I'm thinking of what it is. It's definitely more transparent. That I gotta give. However, transparency, if it's going to not put more money in my pocket, doesn't do any good for me. I cannot, buy a loaf of bread with transparency. Okay. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to let Chris put his cents in. But that's what this guarantee is about, explained as well as I can explain it.
Okay. And that was a fantastic explanation when it comes down to it. Basically, when it comes down to how much are you guaranteed as a driver, you're not going to take more than 53-ish%. And I say that where we're calculating with that 24%. So if you want to look at it as the take, it's like a 53-47 at a minimum. And again, that's if you fall below that. And Sergio is correct. If you're probably making less than that, you might want to rethink the strategies in your market. You need to watch the channel a little bit more. I would suggest starting with the 3Ps: video, planning, positioning, and patience. And then definitely not accepting everything that comes through willy-nilly, because you're just going to set yourself up. But the reality is, when me and I think every single person that's watching this right now, whether it's live or post, what's going to end up happening is you're going to look at it and say, why are they taking out the external expenses when that's part of their expenses that's built into a business? If you're a business owner, if you own a business or have owned a business, you know how a business operates. Many of you watching may not have had a business or not. I own a business as well. And so, yeah, there's a lot of operating expenses. But the problem is, I can't just deduct them and say, oh, they're all going away because they're external. No, 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 no. Those are things that you have to prepare for and you have to actually account for if you want to remain profitable in your business venture and go to the next year. So the problem is, I don't think the normalization of this particular aspect of saying, oh, we're going to take out the external fees of 24% around, because the thing is, we can always, change it accordingly. That's part of your cost of doing business. That means you need to figure out how to account better and not just account for off the table external expenses like commercial insurance. Yes, I get it. Commercial insurance is expensive, but so is personal insurance. So is car tires. So is all of our other expenses that have gone up. So that's an issue I see there. When I first started, it was an 80-20 split. That means out of $1, I made 80 cents on that dollar. I was grandfathered in right after I started, was the 75-25 split, which means a driver would make 75 cents for every dollar that was brought in, and Uber and Lyft would make, the remaining. Then it went and switched to the time and distance and the upfront fare model when it came to, upfront estimate for the trip. And that was much different because it decoupled what the passenger was paying, what the driver was making. Then we went to upfront fares. Welcome to upfront fares, where they say it's transparent because you know where you're picking up and dropping off, but how they calculate that, you don't know, because we've talked about when it comes to time, when it comes to distance, all of that crap is not accounted for, at least on a transparent level, meaning I'm not getting paid for every second that there's a butt in my car, for every, quarter of a mile, every half a mile, every tenth of a mile that I'm driving, whether it's extra or there to the thing. And, now it's kind of taking that again, but they're putting in this floor. So what does that mean for most drivers? That means probably nothing is going to change. Probably nothing. But could that mean it could be a pay cut down the road? In time, it could be. I mean, basically, we've seen talked about whether they're trying to get you down to a Prop 22 level, which means Prop 22 is 100 and what is it again, Sergio, for the
No,
minimum fare or the minimum earning
it's
floor?
120% of minimum fare in
Minimum,
the
yeah.
county that you're in.
Okay.
So it's
So
gonna
are
come to
they
about it's about $20.
Okay. So let's just say, are they trying to bring fares for everybody down? So that means out of the range of what people are making, are they going to kind of squish it down like that and then bring these people up a little bit? I don't know. I don't think so. It's possible. And that's kind of what upfront fares could be, is it boiling the frog in a pot of water, from heating it up from lukewarm to boil, or is it just trying to boil the water immediately? So this is something where obviously we're going to have to track it. I think part of it is, yes, it's more transparent when it comes to what you're making, what they're taking, and things like that. But I don't like how they're trying to normalize external expenses and then say, oh, we're going to take that off the top, and you're going to be left with at least a minimum of 70/30 on whatever's profit after that. That you got to take into account your expenses when it comes to taxes, when it comes to those types of things. You could just add that on top of the fare. That's what you do with everything else. You go to a store, you spend whatever amount of money you're going to spend. Let's say it's $100, then you have your taxes added on top of that. So it shouldn't even take into account. Let's just add the taxes on top or something onto the fare. I don't care. But when it comes down to it, something like commercial insurance and all that is it's insane. It just needs to really be reworked. And yeah, I think the biggest thing is
Oh,
they need
Jeff,
to really look
holy
at
crap.
driver expenses. Holy crap. Jeff, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Jeff.
What is that? The fact
Um,
remains that a ride offered yesterday, $1.50 mile, will make you the same profit today, tomorrow, next week, regardless. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's pretty much what it's going to come down to. For most people that are watching, it's probably not going to affect you in any way, unless you have a really bad week or you're doing the ant of ants, accepting
well,
everything, and that's what Sergio was doing. So, at that point, maybe. Um, but
look,
yeah, I
man,
mean,
I mean, the transparency part, that you're gonna know what it is, but you're gonna know what you already knew, right?
mhm,
So we ran our surveys, in our surveys, unequivocally, 62% on Lyft for the last 500 trips thought that Lyft's take rate was between 50 and 75%. Okay. Well, so you all have been screaming about, oh, Lyft takes 50%, Lyft takes 75%. Okay, I get it. Now Lyft is basically saying the same thing to you all. Whatever you thought was happening, basically, you all were saying, oh, we're getting screwed. We're gonna get, we're getting half the fare. Lyft is now saying, yeah, we are screwing you. We're giving you 53% or a little bit more. If you drive properly, if you're Ant, you're not going to get any of that. You're going to be right at that 70/30 cut. So to me, I mean, this is basically just saying, yeah, well, your guesses were right. This is what it is. This is what we're doing, and just putting it on paper and packaging it as transparency.
mhm.
So for all the people who were thinking that they were getting screwed, well, now you guys know you are getting screwed, but these are the numbers that you have to deal with. Now the top off, I had a lot of questions about that. Let me answer that. It's called a top off or makeup. Look, after each trip, you can see what the take rate was for that specific trip. right? But then at the end of the week, it's going to be all in a bucket, obviously. Now I had some good questions on this, Chris, which I forwarded to you, which we'll do that. We'll talk about these coming up in the next few weeks after we get some results. I already got some results. What about bonuses? What about the EV bonuses? Are they all going to be thrown into the bucket for the driver? There are some good questions out there. What about ride challenges? What about Surge, right? So to me, this is new. I don't know anything about it. I haven't driven under this system. I am going to drive under the system and figure it out. But pretty soon I'll ask you guys, just like I asked you with Uber, to send me your results, and then I'll put that in a folder. And by the time Mr. Risher comes back here, we'll have some ideas of what's happening. Initially, from the looks of it to me, the bottom 15% who are always under 70-30 cut are going to benefit from this, obviously. And the top 85% who are always above 70-30 cut may see something change, may not see something change. When everybody's up in arms and saying, oh, it's a rate cut, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to see results. What Chris said is correct, though. They're running a business there. We're running a business here. And then, ultimately, let's put that screenshot up, Chris, the letter, so we can finish this segment, and we can go a couple other things that Lyft has announced in this package. This is a letter I received literally like 15 minutes before the show. And this basically sums up exactly my thoughts on this subject, on this announcement today. And this is from John Chicago, who is moving to greener pastures now, Chris. He used to be my guy in Chicago, my eyes and ears, one of the top drivers in Chicago. And he says, you know what, I'm tired of this racket. I'm going to start, looking into sales and do something else. So good luck, Joe. But this is his letter, and I think this is as good as I can sum anything up. So looking forward to today's breakdown of the new Lyft initiatives. I think I know where you stand on this, which he knew. This is where I stand. But I hope you'll talk about the commercial insurance that is not, capital not, some external expense that just happens, like city congestion taxes or airport fees. TLDR, too long to read. This insurance is an integral expense of Lyft and Uber's business model. Without it, they would not exist. I agree. If a driver cannot get reimbursed for their integral expenses like fuel and maintenance, then Lyft and Uber shouldn't be able to do this with commercial insurance, which I agree. Out of external expenses, I'm told 80% of external expenses is commercial insurance. To break it down, Lyft and Uber wouldn't exist without providing this insurance. Correct. As a rider, would you be willing to risk your life and potential medical expenses on whatever lowball cheap insurance a random driver carries? Absolutely not. Without providing commercial insurance, do their passengers, Uber and Lyft, would have no passengers. Correct. On the driver's side, would you be willing to take strangers into your car and risk financial bankruptcy if there was an accident and you get sued? Again, absolutely not. Without providing commercial insurance to their drivers, Uber and Lyft would have no drivers. Correct. Commercial insurance is a fundamental requirement of Lyft. Actually, it's a legal requirement of Lyft and Uber's business model. Without it, they could not exist. Why then do they believe it is okay to take out that expense from the very top? As drivers, we aren't allowed to take reimbursement for our fundamental requirements in running this business. We can't take fuel costs, maintenance, car washes, etc. off the top. Why should they be able to? This is a BS spin of the highest order to say they are taking 24% off the top to cover external expenses, and then another up to 30% of what's left just means as drivers, we are allowing them a way to formalize shafting us on every trip. We cannot allow them to spin this insurance cost issue. It is their expense for their business model. It needs to come out of their share, not off the top, just like our expenses come out of our share. I second this. I ditto it. I agree with it 1,000,000%. And Joe, thank you. I know I would read this, and that's exactly what I'm feeling about this new guarantee. So
You know, the I gotta say though, the one thing that I think pissed me off more than anything is the way that the media picked up on this and ran
Yeah,
with it. Because if you looked at some of the article titles and headlines, they're saying that the way they make it sound is that the drivers will make 70% of the total fare, like what the rider pays. So out of $100, the driver would make 70. That's if I was just a normal person, that's the way I would read it. And that's the way I would think it. But in reality, they're taking off they're normalizing this external crap, and then you know they're taking that 70/30 on top of the after the 24, and it's like yeah, that just angered me because when I was looking through all the different articles and stuff, it's just like what the hell, that doesn't even make any
well,
sense.
they said, I mean, a lot of the articles I read were almost like written by Lyft, by Yahoo, or there was one on Fox, there was some couple other ones. They said this is done in the hope of attracting more drivers to the Lyft platform.
Why do they need more
We have
drivers?
plenty. I think we have more than enough drivers to attract, right, on the
I mean,
platform
we're
as
going to
it
be
is.
talking about we're going to be talking in a couple of you know segments on Lyft increasing bonuses for signups and that. It's like
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, I
But I
know.
mean,
So
the reality is like how is that actually going to attract new drivers? I mean,
that goes to show,
in the grand scheme of things. Now,
yeah,
like
that goes
a
to show
couple of
how messed up the media is, bro. It's like they have no clue
oh
what they're
god, yeah,
saying, but they just handed a piece of paper. You go, okay, put this in your paper. I'm like, okay, whatever.
yeah.
But yeah,
I think the
so
biggest thing is that needs to be searched at right now, and I think this has got to be if it's not the number one priority, this needs to be in the top three. This commercial insurance bullshit.
yeah,
It needs either they need to account for it better because if we run the numbers, you know, of what Uber's making or what Lyft's making per trip, and you know, you extrapolate that for the amount of trips that they're making per hour, per day, per quarter, the amount of money that they're collecting on a commercial insurance is absolutely astronomical.
yeah.
So I
Well,
think that's what we need to really
I think
focus on.
we need to save our little slide for that one on upcoming shows, and
No, I get that, but what I'm saying is,
yeah,
like, there needs to be some sort of rework. Like we said before, you know, with the 80/20 split, they had all of their operating expenses from A to Z in
yeah,
20% of the fare
yeah,
back when they started. And, you know, now they're trying to make it where there's the floor of them maxing out at 47% of the total fare
yeah,
being done. So those types of things I think really need to be addressed because if this commercial insurance thing is you know 80% or more of the 24%, you know, there's got to be something done with the billions of trips that are done, you
yeah.
know, to get this back
Well,
down and
you know,
under
as you know, I'm going down the rabbit hole on that because look, when Uber says, $100 trip, driver gets paid 50% is the take rate. Uber disagreed with that when Len Sherman wrote that article, right? They said, no, we have our expenses. This almost feels like to me Lyft is going the Uber way on this one, right? With a little bit more transparency because Uber is still washy hocus pocus numbers, but this one at least they're telling you, look, this we are screwing you. This is what it is.
yeah.
I'm like, okay,
Well,
but
look,
I'm going the rabbit hole on that commercial insurance thing, and then I think we need to settle that. But I need to talk to more experts about that subject because I'm not educated enough about the area, the space.
hmm,
But yeah, I mean, you know, if a rider pays, by the way, the rider is paying this, right? So what's happening is that the fares are going higher as commercial insurance goes higher. Because they're passing it on. Lyft is not paying for this. Uber is not paying for commercial insurance. The rider is paying for it. So what's happening is that when the rates go up, the rider fares goes up, and then ours stays the same. And then we look like, okay, we're making less money out of the fare now, less money out of the fare. Well, like Chris said, as a business, if you cannot control your commercial insurance, and I know what's happening is that Lyft just signed a contract for 18 months. They outsource every single commercial insurance provider as opposed to Uber, who's going more in-house now. So to me, it's like we need to understand this, that on a trip, that's $100, $24 or 80% or $20 of that cannot be commercial insurance. It cannot be that high. If I have a full-time driver with Lyft or Uber, I can go get my own commercial insurance at $1,000 to $1,200 in California, which is ridiculously high a month. But if I'm doing 150 trips and on the face of it, the minimum is $3, right? That's $450 a week. And and I can actually pay my own commercial insurance, keep the rest of the money that Ubers and Lyft are charging me or taken out of the as external external fees. So to me, there is something wrong with this for sure. We all know it's wrong. It smells wrong. It looks wrong. It's bad. Are they, and Harry asked this to David during the interview. He said, so you're just saying that drivers should just trust you, that it's 24%. And he goes, yeah. And I'm going like, okay, well, we're going to keep digging into it and we're going to figure this part out. So,
Yep. Well, the last thing that I want to say when it comes to this is, we've talked about how Uber has made some strong decisions over the last several quarters that has put their stock price today over $70 a share. And Lyft is commingling around the 12, 13, 1350 range right now with their announcement. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not a stock. Do not take my word as word for your investments. Do your own due diligence. But, Lyft might be a bargain at this point. Just saying. But at least when it comes on the stock, at least when it comes to, but I mean, the reality is, there definitely needs to be something that's done. There's a couple of announcements that were made. I think are good. The deactivations, I think is good. The ability to appeal. How that's going to play out, though, time will tell how that's actually going to play. Actually play out. But a couple of these other things,
look,
seeing where
extending getting paid on scheduled trips is good for wait time. Like you get there while waiting, might as well get paid for it. I think that's a good thing. EV bonus for people who drive EVs is being extended to 5-6 different states.
That needs to go though nationally if you want to have any type of change.
Yeah, but Chris is. Uber is like the gorilla, and then Lyft is the little tree. Remember, so they always take smaller steps. And then on the deactivation side, look, I had actually a couple of instances last week that, and we even talked about it last show, Chris, that a driver got deactivated because some a-hole passenger complained about the driver being under the influence. And the same passenger who complained about the guy actually the night before pissed in his car because he was dead drunk, right? And Lyft sent the driver $80. We even showed the pictures on it, okay? And that driver was suspended immediately because as soon as a passenger complains about a driver, they suspend you and then they do a review. Well, now the review is going to be with a one push button process. You click the button, it automatically goes to a human review as opposed to the black hole that Lyft support is, that you just got to go back and forth, cut and paste. Why did I get deactivated? Do this, do that. And I think that's a good thing. Maybe it's not going as far as Uber's a few months ago when they announced that if you're accused of being under the influence, Uber actually is going to pay for your blood test. Doesn't go as far as theirs, but I think it's a good start, and I think there's more to come there. And there was a couple of nothing burgers in there. And one last thing, I don't know how many people in our audience were platinum or platinum plus, which was the level above platinum. They're getting rid of platinum plus, not getting rid of it. I shouldn't say getting rid of it, replacing it with something called elite level. Under the elite level, you have about 5 or 6 different perks. The top 2 that caught my eye, I think with Platinum Plus, you are getting 6 or 7% on cash back on gas. Now you're getting 10%. You're getting the same 6, fast airport rematches. You're also getting 6 area filters, which we love here, and a couple other perks. And then basically, elite drivers are going to be the top 5% drivers according to their driving score and their points. Now, I know for a fact that the point, point goalpost always gets moved further and further. And this is month to month to month, by the way. And I'm pretty sure, depending on your city, but I know in a few cities, the goalpost got moved again, Chris. It's, I think, up to 1,900 points now for elite level. And so, look, I am never going to get elite because I don't think the perks are enough for me to sustain that. Maybe I get it for 1 month, but then in order for you to keep it, you have to sustain that month after month after month. And that's probably more for full-time drivers than anything else. Yeah, so these are the changes. I mean, there are some good things in there. There are some neutral things in there at the moment until we find out more about it. But whatever Joe said in his letter, and I really was compelled to put that up, and a lot of people's opinion is just that, right? And what about our expenses? What about that? We're not taking that off the top. Then we have to figure it out after you take your 24% external expenses. And look, we're going to find out. We're going to do our research as usual, keep our numbers, keep our data, get the data from you guys, the drivers. In the next couple of weeks, once this is more in action, I will ask you to send me your earnings reports, and old versus new, right? Because you guys are all driving now, and suddenly this is thrown on you. It'll get some time to get used to. We'll figure out the kinks in it, and then we'll go back and forth with Lyft, and hopefully we'll get those fixed. But this is a big change. Lyft sold it as transparency. Okay, I know where my money is going now, or I know at least where the passengers' money is going, to the penny. Is it going to make me more money? I don't know. Probably not. Probably it's a neutral thing. To the 15% that are on the bottom, get your asses in gear. Stop accepting every request. This is basically like, cherry pickers, subsidizing the ants. So, change your strategy a little bit. Maybe, 85% were doing better than you. Because of you now, this guarantee thing comes around. So with all joking aside, time will tell. But my feelings could not be talked about, or my thoughts about this guarantee thing, more than what Joe said. And I agree with Joe's letter 1,000,000%.
All right, thanks for watching. That short little clip was from our live stream, Show Me the Money Club, with Sergio and myself, Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you subscribe, turn on all notifications so you'll be notified when we go live, as well as all of our awesome content. Make sure to check out this video right here, which will take you to the entire live stream, or check out this video right there. All right, drive smart, everyone.